Let anyone come and tell me that the shark is tasting. Let him come. If anyone comes and tells me that the shark is just tasting, I'll tell them. And all those who are gone, they can't tell you if it tasted. I'm thinking of Mathieu, for example.
Sharks, although rare, have always been part of the marine biotope of the Isle of La Réunion. Until recently, there was an average of 1 attack per year. But for the past 2 years, for unknown reasons, the rate has increased. 10 attacks have taken place, 5 of them fatal. It all started on Canal Beach on June 15, 2011. Eddie Aubert, a bodyboarder aged 31, was killed here at the place known as Boucan. At 5:30 p.m., the last in the water, Eddie was going to ride one last wave when the shark attacked. Then, 3 months later, at the other end of the beach, Matthew Schiller surfed his last wave. Former French champion and bodyboard instructor, Matthew Schiller was a local figure on the surf scene. Despite the closeness of the beach, his body was never found. The evening he died, the surfers expressed their anger against the authorities.
The old folk of La Réunion didn't allow their kids to set foot in the water. I live on this land. Shout all you like, that's the truth.
What's going on? I've lived here 20 years. We've never had any problems.
I've lived here for 60 years.
So what? Do you know what's going on here?
It's my country, mister.
You have no idea what's going on.
In 30 years, there's never been an attack on the West Coast. Not 1 attack in 30 years, then 5 attacks in 4 months. They tell us it's our problem?
The attack on Matthew Schiller tipped La Réunion into psychosis. The beach is emptied. The town of St. Paul set up flimsy and inadequate protective nets. People saw sharks everywhere. At locations on the west coast, not a day went by without a sighting. Soon the beaches of St. Paul were closed. Only the lagoon remained open. In the middle of the tourist season, the beachside economy was hit. Restaurateurs struggled. Surf clubs and diving clubs saw activity plummet. The whole of La Réunion was confined to land. In this climate of psychosis, juvenile sharks even had the temerity to venture along inlets to the heart of the towns, something not seen here in living memory. It was against this difficult context for the Isle of La Réunion that we decided to investigate what was behind these attacks, because now, in the eyes of the world, La Réunion had become Shark Island. These shark attacks cannot be just down to chance. There must be some rational explanation for the change in this animal's behavior. Our investigation starts in St. Paul, La Réunion's second largest town. It is located just 2 kilometers from Canal Beach, where the latest fatal attacks took place. St. Paul is particularly under scrutiny for its fish farm and its polluting waste. The traditional fishermen are certainly best placed to tell us about the change in the shark's behavior.
Some 15 years ago, maybe more, I used to go play volleyball every Saturday afternoon along there, next to the nautical club. One day the sea was like this, dead calm. A guy showed up with a tennis ball and his dog. He threw the ball, the dog fetched it 2 or 3 times. At one point the dog stopped and barked. I swear, I saw a fin like that, 5 meters from the shore. Since then, I never set foot in the water. Before I'd go for a dip after playing volleyball, we'd go for a dip in the sea, but not anymore. I'm sure they came close to the shore, I'm certain. Because we catch tiger sharks 2.5, 3 miles out, and they've eaten loads of crap out there. Nets, tins, hair. Hairdressers throw stuff in the sea, all their crap, and the sharks come by. Where do they eat that? Out at sea? I don't think so.
You think the fish farm has to do with it?
Sure, that attracts sharks. To begin with, when they set that up, there were loads of bull sharks. Nothing but bull sharks everywhere. There's loads of crap and debris. The fish crap. It makes loads of stuff. They give them rabateau, which pollutes the seabed. Sharks live in a dirty environment. They come there to feed.
The first lead is tiger sharks and bull sharks, which are approaching the coast, attracted by the waste of human activity. But then events took over. When a man was attacked in a kayak, suddenly we're in the remake of Jaws. The kayakist was attacked by a shark when paddling at full speed. The force of the impact snapped the boat in two, sinking it. This time, there's no question of blaming the attack on the imprudence of surfers.
I saw the color of its skin. I remember it very well. Bluish-gray, shiny, small eyes with a square nose. I'll remember it all my life. It's an image that's branded in my brain.
Jean-Pierre Castellani agrees to return to the site of the incident to explain how the shark attacked him. Tough moment to relive.
Here, it slid over the float. There was a bit of swell, so the float was well down, which allowed it to slide over it like a plank. And it came straight up here. The impact was here. He bit right here. It had two goes with his head. I saw two movements of the head. It really went for it. Just then, I wielded the paddle, and in one movement, boom, I struck. It was easy because it was within reach. Then it jerked violently to the left and went off. It dived, and that was when the float came up, and I capsized on the other side. I surprised myself by saying, no, I'm not going to die, not me. I don't want to die, especially not in the water. It's a tough moment.
Attacks on boats are very rare in the world, most of them attributed to tiger sharks. But in this case, Jean-Pierre describes a bluish-gray shark with small eyes, a description closer to that of a bull shark. To clarify the matter, we talked to Jerry von Greveling, one of the specialists tasked by the authorities with examining bite marks on victims. He did his medical thesis on shark attacks and knows the subject well.
The bite marks produced by a bull shark attack, unlike those of the tiger shark, these being the two main species incriminated locally, have the characteristic of being asymmetrical. If you look at the jaw of a bull shark, it's easy to see. The upper jaw will cause damage, which is not the same nature as that caused by the lower. The upper jaw has a triangular, finely serrated teeth and is very powerful. This leaves on the victim or surfboard a continuous line as observed in this photo. Whereas the teeth of the lower jaw are not very sharp and are quite widely spaced, which means we find a line in an arc with spaced perforations and lacerations, which with that width of bite reveals the signature, meaning a bull shark was involved. Unlike a tiger shark, which has teeth that are all the same, the upper and lower jaw being symmetrical. The first official reference to the presence of the bull shark dates to this photo from April 16, 1994, which illustrates a specimen captured at St. Joseph. As it happens, this specimen was given to me by the fisherman who caught it, because it contained a human arm that he found when he cut the animal open. We can state, without much risk of error, that the majority of incidents are attributable to the bull shark.
As incredible as it may seem, sharks have never been studied at La Réunion. Given the urgency of the situation, the state finally decided to finance a study with the help of the region of La Réunion. On October 18, 2011, the Shark Scientific Program was launched. The objective is ambitious, to tag and follow 80 sharks, 40 tigers, and 40 bull sharks. Thierry Gazzo is one of the fishermen employed for the study. But tagging is not the same as fishing, as Thierry, despite his experience, soon finds out.
The difficulty of the exercise is not fishing the way fishermen usually do, but to marshal the animal until the scientists arrive, when we hand it over to them. Then the fish is handled for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then they release it.
Thierry has just caught a tiger shark on a line. The clock is ticking. The team of scientists goes into action. Caught on a hook, a shark will soon die of asphyxiation because it can no longer swim to oxygenate its gills. So the scientists must work quickly to insert the transmitter.
Watch out for your hands.
3 meters 33. It's the biggest one.
Well done.
The team of scientists is steered in the field by Antonin Blaison, a young PhD student at the Institute of Research for Development. Antonin is on the front line for tagging operations. The most delicate part involves immobilizing the shark on its back, making an incision on the belly, then inserting the transmitter.
There are two ways to do it. You can put a tag on the outside or you can put it on the inside, as we've just done. We'd rather put them inside to avoid the transmitters coming off, which means we are then following a shark, which doesn't exist. So once it's in the abdominal cavity, we're sure that if we see a shark movement, it really is that shark, not a different shark which has swallowed the transmitter from another one, or just a transmitter which has come off and which is drifting.
Once the transmitter is in the abdomen, the cut has to be stitched up. But the animal's thick skin makes this a hard operation. And the hook must not be left in the shark.
We took it out. It's going away unharmed. It'll heal up quickly. It's not going away with that in its mouth. There she goes.
This female tiger, weighing nearly 400 kilos, heads off stunned into the depths with no idea that she is now under surveillance. The tag she is carrying will transmit for about 2 years until its battery dies. From now on, the whole west coast of La Réunion is under tight surveillance. In under just 2 months, 44 receivers have been installed along the 50 kilometers of shoreline. As soon as a tagged shark approaches closer than 500 meters, its signal will be identified and logged. The receivers have been positioned at a depth of 20 meters, mainly in the zone of the attacks, especially on the buoys that mark out the marine reserve. While the first data is being gathered, we head off to examine the fish farm cages in the Bay of St. Paul. Are they responsible for bringing the bull sharks near to the coast? Once there, seeing the frenetic activity of the thousands of fish, it's hard to think these cages do not attract sharks. This is the first time Pascal Paris, one of the farm's technicians, has talked publicly about the subject.
No, the sharks here are not attracted to the company's farming cages. That's completely untrue.
Are you sure?
Quite sure. You can even go a bit further. Today, after 2 years of operation, bull sharks are even deserting the Bay of St. Paul.
Diving below the cages and discovering this oasis of life in the middle of the bay nonetheless poses some questions. It's hard to believe the bull sharks wouldn't be drawn to this food source and have simply left the area. To get to the bottom of the issue, scientists from the Institute of Research for Development decide to monitor the cages. A camera is submerged to a depth of 30 meters for a month. Positioned 3 meters above the seabed on a tripod to avoid the water's high turbidity, it will film the comings and goings of visitors all day. The camera is connected to a computer on the surface which records the images. This will tell whether sharks frequent the area. Marine biologist Pascal Chabanet is responsible for monitoring the cages for a month.
It's true that the bull shark, which is the main species incriminated in the attacks we have in La Réunion at the moment, is a little-known species which has been very little studied. I've been diving for 20 years off La Réunion. I've never seen a bull shark. They're sharks which usually live near the seabed and which are quite timid, so we don't see them. As a result, it's very difficult to study them. And that's why I think that with this video, we're going to remove the presence of man to observe them with the camera. In my view, that's ideal.
The shark scientific program began a month ago, and while the tagging of the tiger sharks is progressing rapidly, no bull sharks have yet been caught. Thierry Gatso is discovering an adversary with hitherto unsuspected capacities.
The big chunks of bait are eaten by the sharks, but not the hooks. Where there's a hook, it doesn't bite. They're smart. They're devious.
To overcome this, the French Diving Federation brought in Fred Buille, a specialist in tagging sharks while freediving. The advantage of freedivers is that they can get closer to sharks than divers using bottles, whose bubbles scare the fish. Guy Gatso is one of the most experienced divers and underwater hunters on La Réunion. He decides to take Fred Buille to explore the area of Saint-Gilles-les-Bains, a short distance from the first attack where a surfer on holiday lost a leg.
There are youngsters who fish in the area who say they are accompanied by bull sharks. So I simply thought that if we tried fishing in the area that is authorized for fishing, we might have some contact with the bull sharks. And that's what's happening. For the past 20 or 30 minutes, there's at least one bull shark circulating. Fred, it's there.
Hey, Fred.
Fred, he's calling you.
There's 3 over here. Here, 2. Guy, there's 3 here.
Okay, good.
We're right opposite the Roche Noire beach, which is where there were 2 attacks. The sharks are there. They can be as deep as 15 meters. I think they patrol around 30 to 35. And then when they hear a noise or something which stimulates them, they go back towards land.
Guy Gatso's intuition was right. After only a few minutes, the first bull shark appears, right in front of the hunter's rifle. These first images reveal a powerful yet extremely cautious animal, which swims just a few inches above the seabed, which makes it both invisible and fearsome. Another surprise is that this shark, believed to be solitary, is not alone. It swims in groups of 2 or 3. Does it have a group behavior with attack strategies? Unfortunately, the acoustic tag does not stick. The shark's skin is so thick that the dart has not penetrated. Nonetheless, the dive is a success. They have finally found where the bull shark lives, just 20 meters deep, right opposite the port of Saint-Gilles, the main beach resort of La Réunion. But why Saint-Gilles? Why do these shy and evasive bull sharks inhabit an area opposite a spot with so much human activity? 25 years ago, there was nothing here. Now, the number of fishing boats has increased dramatically. Yves Régnier founded his diving club in the 1990s. He has been a close observer of the area and has a clear opinion on the presence of bull sharks near the port.
I have my own idea about the problem there may be today with sharks coming so close. It's a lack of respect among users of the sea regarding waste, which is thrown out all along the coast daily. Sometimes I swim in the port, as well as behind the barrier, in the midst of fish waste and carcasses. I think everything is there to attract predators.
This theory carries some weight because the bull shark mainly hunts by smell, hence its attraction to fish waste. It also has sensorial receptors all around its mouth. These detectors are so efficient that it doesn't need to see its prey before attacking it, making it a predator that is perfectly adapted to cloudy waters. These two bull sharks have detected an invisible prey hidden in the sand. And once the bull shark has detected its prey, there's no getting away. The bull shark's ideal hunting ground is the murky waters where the waves break over the reef. The surfers and bodyboarders who wait there to catch a wave are highly vulnerable. On February 19, 2011, Eric D'Argent, who was on vacation in La Réunion, became the first victim in the grim series. He lives in the south of France. He agreed to recount this painful episode.
It happened while I was sitting on my board. I felt something get hold of my leg. I leaned over to see what was going on, and that's when I saw the shark hanging onto my calf. It was almost vertical. I wasn't very far from shore. It must have been about 1.5 meters deep, and I saw the whole shark resting on the bottom in a vertical position. I felt some pain, but nothing too major. It was quite a sharp pain, but you couldn't imagine that it was already torn off. I started to fight back. I hit it wherever I could, all over. It lasted 2 or 3 seconds, and just then the shark started to really spin around, pulling slowly down, and then it suddenly let go. I really felt it had released me, as if it had let go. And my first impression was that everything was okay.
When a shark spins and pulls down, it is in hunting mode. But could hunger drive bull sharks to change their behavior and attack surfers? We're back in Saint-Gilles in the early morning. The fishermen return from their night at sea. For several years, their livelihood has been fragile.
For the past 2 or 3 years,
The fish no longer bite?
the fish no longer bite. Before, in 2008, we'd catch 25 to 30 kilos of fish.
And how much did you get tonight?
In one night, I've caught 1 tuna and some bait. Luckily, I got 1 tuna. Otherwise, nothing.
Fernand Léon is the oldest fisherman in Saint-Gilles. He likes to fish out to sea. For him, the verdict is unequivocal.
The fish have become more rare, so they are approaching the coast. There are not enough fish, so they're coming closer, they're looking. It always comes back to the same thing. Hunger drives the wolf from the woods.
Another fisherman gives us some key information.
It's been at least 15 years since they stopped fishing for shark.
You used to fish it all the time?
It wasn't specially targeted, but when there was a shark on the line, it was caught because it could be sold. Cut off the head, gutted it, €3 a kilo.
So there was a regular cull done by the fishermen.
Exactly.
And for the past 10 years, it hasn't been done.
No.
Sharks have not been fished off La Réunion for some 15 years. Their sale is banned because their meat can be toxic. This precautionary measure has no doubt encouraged their growth in numbers. After 2 months of sea missions, the first bull sharks have finally been captured, predictably off the coast of Saint-Gilles. After almost an hour of reeling in, here are the first bull sharks brought to the surface. Once positioned on its back, this feared shark becomes lethargic. The scientists can then begin their work.
We can measure it now. We can measure it. Tell me when you're ready. Antonin, if you could lift your arm up. It's 3 meters 13. No, 3:14. 3 meters 14. That's the biggest. We've just opened it up. We're going to use V16. The number is ID 3451. Now it's all the way in, and I'm going to push it in place so it can be lined up correctly.
Ouais, elle est bonne. Elle est à l'envers, mais elle est bonne. Là, c'est parti. Elle nage.
She's swimming. She's moving her tail. That's good.
This female bull shark, numbered 3451, has been called Estelle by the scientists. As she becomes practically inert in the depths of the ocean, they wonder if she'll survive the operation. While tagging the bull sharks is in full swing, the results of the spy camera arrive. After 1 month of surveillance, we will at last know if these fish farm cages are infested with bull sharks, as some suggest. Pascal Chabanet and her student, Nicolas Loiseau, have gathered some surprising images.
Look, that's really interesting. There are jacks which are beating the sand. I've never seen that. And now the shark arrives, but he goes by and leaves them in peace.
A peaceful shark swimming through open water. This is an image no one expected. Without human presence, the bull shark has a completely different behavior. Nothing like that fearsome shark skimming the seabed observed off Saint-Gilles. And no apparent excitement due to the proximity of the fish farm cages.
Oh, that one is easy to recognize.
Nicolas has gone through 175 hours of footage. From this painstaking task, he recorded 218 bull shark appearances, which at first seems a very large number. But thanks to patient photo identification, he observed these 218 appearances involved just 8 individuals. 8 individuals which occasionally pass under the fish farm cages. But what relationship do these sharks have with the cages?
To begin with, we wondered if it was linked to feeding the cages, but in fact it doesn't correspond at all with the times when the guys who work on the fish farm feed their fish.
And we don't see them in the pictures, since we can match up the time when they feed the fish with our images. In my view, these cages are passing zones, and it's certain that they're attracted by this arrangement in the water, which forms a sort of artificial reef. But for the meantime, we absolutely cannot say that it's because of these cages that there are bull sharks in the Bay of St. Paul. It's important to keep in mind that we're in a zone where there are bull sharks naturally.
It's clear that the cages are not the place full of bull sharks that everyone imagines. Nonetheless, the cages play a role as an artificial reef where the whole food chain is concentrated. The spy camera shows this with some incredible sequences in which bull sharks, jacks, and stingrays naturally exist alongside one another, a coexistence that no diver off La Réunion has ever witnessed. The scientific program is making steady progress. In 6 months, 10 bull sharks and 14 tigers have been tagged. But the objective of 80 sharks is still a long way off. The last attack is now almost a year ago. Nautical activities have resumed. Surveillance systems with lookouts and freedivers have been set up during certain hours at some surfing spots. The surveillance operation seems best adapted to the situation. But then on July 23, 2012, at 4:15 p.m., at the Trois Bassins surf spot, the most popular on La Réunion, where no attack had previously taken place, Alexander Rasiga, a surfer aged 23, was attacked in 2 meters of water.
It was just there, where the rock extends out, on the point there.
Alexander, like many of his fellow surfers, continued to surf despite the shark risk. For many of these young people, the passion for their sport is stronger than anything. Jean Rasiga knew that his son was in danger.
What I'm going to say will sound weird, but I lived in fear of an accident like that. And when I got the call, I had a sort of reaction, and I thought, that's it, it's happened. He must have started aged about 15. I'd say it was almost like a drug. That's where he was at. He could feel withdrawal if he didn't surf. I think there are others like him. He even said to us once, if that's how I have to go, that's how I have to go. For those of us who have to deal with it, it's awful. It was his whole life. You can be angry with someone for abandoning you, but that's not what he did. He didn't choose that death. We can't be angry with him. That would be like, it's disgusting, you left us. No, that's not it.
The question everyone was asking is, was a tagged shark present in the area at the time of the attack? The day after the accident, the authorities asked Antonin Blaison to analyze the data from the receivers as quickly as possible, because anger was growing and people were looking to the scientists. But the system set up by the IRD is not a surveillance mechanism. It doesn't indicate the presence of sharks in real time. It's a long-term monitoring system to understand the animal's behavior and then put in place adequate prevention measures. To extract the recorded information, the receivers have to be brought to the surface and their data transferred to a computer.
In fact, here we have 2 different sharks. The 3451, which is a bull shark called Estelle, a female measuring 3 meters 14. And then 3453, also a bull shark of 3 meters 8 centimeters, called Fanny. The accident was Monday, which was the 23rd. That day there were only 4 spots, and that was at 5 in the morning. The attack on Alexander took place at 4:30 p.m., so on the face of it, there weren't any tagged sharks in the area at the time of the attack. So this is more a place where they pass rather than where they live.
Estelle is that 3 meter 14 female whose tagging we saw on February 10th off the port of Saint-Gilles. She was in the area a few hours before the attack with another female, Fanny, who is a similar size. An intriguing detail is that Fanny was caught and tagged by the scientists the same day as Estelle. That suggests that these 2 females move around together, coming close to the shore and very close to surf spots. The myth of the serial killer shark looms large. Marc Zoria, the head of the Shark Scientific Program, is a specialist in animal behavior. Until the analysis of the long-term results arrives, he has his own theories about the bull shark's change in behavior.
One idea is that in a depleted ecosystem which doesn't work well, there can be a series of imbalances which have been created by the degradation of that ecosystem, and which means that at some point they came closer to the coast. And which means that at some point they came closer to the coast, they found themselves living in a much greater density than they should. They're in a state of feeding distress. In other words, there's less to eat. They have to look harder. So they're exploring more and hunting more. Since they are opportunists, they're capable of going after other prey which they didn't find before. So they are not only in feeding distress, they are much more aggressive.
Sharks near the coast, increased aggression, and murky waters. These explanations seem more likely than the hypothesis of a serial killer shark. Especially because the damage to the ecosystem Mark Soria talked about can easily be verified. The rampant urbanization seen on the west coast of La Réunion over the past 30 years has had an impact on the sea as much as on the land. When it rains, the water can no longer penetrate the ground, which has become impermeable due to construction. All that water flows into ravines which disgorge into the sea, carrying with it earth and various pollutants. The water treatment plants which have sprung up along the coast empty their treated water directly into the sea. This inflow of fresh water, sometimes turbid, creates the preferred biotope of the bull shark. It was in this context that a marine reserve was created to protect the coral reef, a marine reserve which is increasingly controversial. Still in shock after the last attack, the surfers express their anger at the reserve, which they accuse of being a larder for sharks.
Now we can't do anything at Saint-Gilles because there's this reserve. That's the big problem. If there wasn't the reserve, the underwater hunters would still be in the water, fishermen would still be there, and the shark wouldn't approach the coast.
The debate moves to the reopening of shark fishing in the marine reserve. It's a debate which is supported by the MP and mayor of Saint-Leu, Thierry Robert, who is calling for a shark cull, in other words, their elimination. The issue has become political. The scientists are discredited.
Today, they are still doing scientific studies. I've got nothing against scientific studies to find solutions. Far from it. But once again, we see this is leading nowhere. In my view, we should authorize a shark cull. We are looking at the legal framework for that. And I can assure you that we're going to do something about this matter very soon.
The controversial marine reserve stretches over nearly 40 kilometers along the coral reef. We accompany the scientists into the so-called full reserve. For 6 years, all human activity has been banned there. Even the scientists haven't been back for a year. This sanctuary acts as a place of reference to measure the biomass, in other words, the quantity of fish per square meter. The scientists unroll a decameter on the seabed and record all the species and the size of the fish visible on either side of this line, called a transect.
I counted 2 groupers in the transects in all, which is pretty terrible. Yes, 2 groupers. And practically no angelfish, practically no butterfly fish, which are the fish you often find associated with coral. So you see, in 1 hour of diving, you count 3. There's nothing to eat for the sharks. So if they're aggressive, it's perhaps because they've got nothing left to eat.
At first glance, the abundance of life that we're used to seeing on healthy coral reefs is not to be found. So not exactly a larder for sharks. Then tragedy struck again at the surfing spot of Saint-Leu on August 5th, 2012.
Suddenly, he was sucked down into the water. The board flew into the air and I thought, that's not right. The wave immediately turned all red. He was paddling with one arm. You could clearly see it.
With the best waves on La Réunion, Saint-Leu is a world-renowned surfing location. Fabien Boujon is the only surviving surfer, along with Eric Dargent, who saw his attacker. His testimony is key.
At one point, I was sitting on my board, and wham! There was an impact on my leg. Not on the board. Something gray got hold of my leg. And then I saw it was a shark, because I could see its eye. It was dark gray, a little brown and white underneath. I thought, this one's a bull shark. And at one instant, I pulled on it somewhere, and right away it let me go. When I got back to my board, I took it with my left hand. And at the moment I took it, I raised my arm like that, and I saw there was no hand. So I turned around and I saw my leg. I thought, no way. I saw the tibia, the bone.
His account is similar to that of Eric Dargent, the same strategy of attack in very shallow water. Antonin Blaison heads off to read the receivers nearest to the attack site. He raises the beacon located at the surf spot of La Tortue, 300 meters north of Saint-Leu. The data is revealing.
In fact, we have 449 detections, which in itself is not huge, except that when you look closer, this concerns a single shark. A shark which normally moves around a great deal, which stays for 6-7 minutes every time it moves through a receptor field. But this time, over a period from 26 to 28 July, or even the start of the 29th, it stays for 3 days in practically the same place. What could explain why this particular shark stayed for 3 days in the same place? It might have been attracted by fishermen. That's one possibility, a hypothesis.
When Estelle's movements are mapped over the week from receiver to receiver, we can observe it's a very active shark which covers a lot of ground. But from July 26th, for an unknown reason, she decided to stay for 3 days at La Tortue. Clearly, this female was attracted by something. Fabienne's accident has intensified the revolt. Surfers and fishermen find common cause. The reserve is once again the root of the problem. The surfers maintain that this protection zone attracts sharks, while the fishermen think that reopening the reserve would provide them with a significant quantity of fish and it would drive away the sharks. This motley gathering nearly turned nasty.
We're not here for that, guys. We've been working on this subject for a year and a half, okay? We're not here for that.
Faced with the clamor for action, the state is trying to find a way out. A catch of 20 sharks is announced, 10 bull sharks and 10 tigers. The state hopes to prove the sharks do not carry toxins, so it can once again authorize their sale. This is a hastily conceived scientific pretext because in truth, the cull is above all a means to calm the population. The sharks will now be dissected and samples sent to a lab to look for traces of ciguatera, a toxin responsible for numerous deaths on the neighboring island of Madagascar. But scientists disagree over this fishing. Catching 20 sharks will not be enough to conclude the absence of toxicity, and eliminating these sharks without knowing the causes of the attacks doesn't make any sense. As a result, an element of competition creeps in. Antonin's team heads out to sea day and night to attain the ambitious objective of tagging 80 sharks, hoping that those same sharks won't be caught before the teams in charge of the ciguatera sampling. Antonin uses the opportunity to carry out some new experiments.
This is a satellite beacon that we have configured so it stays attached to the shark for 6 months. And after 6 months, it will come to the surface and start transmitting to the satellite. So we can find out if the sharks tagged in La Réunion travel to Madagascar, to Mauritius, or perhaps even further to South Africa or Australia. There you go. It's working, there.
Antonin is worried. The latest scientific data gathered raises more questions. This new experiment will perhaps provide some answers.
Two large bull sharks, Estelle and Fanny, have disappeared. They are females measuring 3 meters 14 centimeters and 3 meters 8 centimeters. And they both suddenly disappeared in October. We've seen no sign of them since.
Have these two sharks been caught? This is highly likely since the authorities put a price on their heads following the latest attack. Two months later, on Wednesday, the 8th of May, 2013, off Les Brisons in Saint-Gilles. It was 12:14 p.m. A young bodyboarder was the last person left in the water when a shark attacked. The stain of blood so often described by witnesses instantly spread in the waves. The swell had freshened and the water was milky. The emergency services reacted immediately, and within minutes, rescuers were on the scene, but it was already too late. The attacks on the bodyboarders left no hope. Stéphane Béramel, a tourist visiting La Réunion, tragically disappeared. Immediately after the attack, Antonin Blaison reads the beacon data and the verdict arrives.
Wait, it's Estelle.
Estelle is back. On May 8, 2013, the day of the attack, at 10:06 a.m. local time, Estelle's tag number 3451 is logged on the beacon at Les Roches Noires, some 750 meters from the drama. But at the time of the attack, 12:14 p.m., she was absent. And as one might expect, Estelle is not alone.
There's also Fanny, another bull shark. What I find surprising is that these two bull sharks, both measuring over 3 meters, had practically disappeared from the detection network between October 2012 and April 2013. And suddenly, they're back in the winter period. Once again, they're being frequently detected.
Thought to have disappeared, Estelle and Fanny are back after a 7-month absence. It took a full season of recording movements for the receivers to reveal their secret. In La Réunion, some of the bull sharks are seasonal. They disappear during the summer and return in the winter. After 7 months away, on April 28, 2013, at the start of the southern winter, Estelle returned to La Réunion from the north, where she was detected by the beacon at Sainte-Marie. She swam down the east coast, passing close to the receiver at Sainte-Rose. She headed straight south along the wild coast at the foot of the volcano. On the evening of April 29th, she reached the west coast, where she was logged by the beacon at La Rivière Saint-Étienne. She then began the long way up the coast, where she was logged by most of the receivers. After swimming round La Réunion, almost 200 kilometers in 3 days non-stop, she reached the area of Saint-Gilles-les-Bains on April 30th at 11 a.m. And there, against all expectations, she stayed for 9 days. For 9 days, she moved around between the port of Saint-Gilles and the Boucon-Canot beach, where she made many visits as if attracted by something. On the 9th day, May 8, 2013, the drama occurred. Strangely, Estelle was present all morning at the location of the attack. But at 11:12 a.m. precisely, she vanished from the receiver at Les Roches Noires. And 2 minutes later, she was picked up near another receiver situated 1.5 kilometers farther out. At 12:14 p.m., the moment of the attack, the data is unequivocal. Estelle was absent. Amazingly, Fanny's movements are identical. After 7 months' absence, she went straight to the Saint-Gilles area and stayed there for 19 days. At the time of the attack, she wasn't there either. So what did happen? This rare footage, a video filmed by Thierry Gazzo, the fisherman from the scientific program, gives us the beginnings of an answer. Thierry caught a male bull shark measuring 2.5 meters long. Its belly was covered in bruises, and its clasper, its reproductive organ, was still filled with sperm. This male had just mated. This video provides proof that bull sharks couple in winter in La Réunion. During this period, they gather in greater numbers in a quest for food that, in a depleted environment, leads to exceptional aggression. This explains why the majority of the attacks took place during the winter, between May and October. Unfortunately, this theory is soon confirmed. On July 15, 2013, in the middle of the southern winter, despite appeals for caution, a girl aged 15 is attacked on the beach at St. Paul, only 5 meters from the shore. The scientific program continues. The bull shark has always been described as a coastal shark. But the latest experiment in the shark program has challenged this assertion. The tag which Antonin fixed on a bull shark came off after 6 months and sent its position to the satellite. A 2.5-meter male traveled up to 300 kilometers south of La Réunion. The data recorded indicates that this shark regularly dived to depths of 250 meters. These figures show that the bull shark can exhibit pelagic behavior. In other words, it is capable of swimming in open water far from the coast. Another scientific finding widens our field of investigation yet further. This 3-meter female tiger shark, tagged by Antonin's team in December 2012 off La Réunion, was caught west of Madagascar 9 months later. It had swum some 1,800 kilometers. Like tiger sharks, are bull sharks capable of making huge migrations before returning to reproduce off La Réunion? The bull shark has yet to reveal all its secrets. 2 years ago, almost nothing was known about it. No one had ever seen it in local waters. Today, we have a better understanding of its behavior and the reasons which drive it to attack people. But this investigation teaches us more about ourselves. It was indeed man who created the conditions for it to come in so close to the shore. Each attack is an alert, a forewarning of many other tragic events if mankind doesn't make peace with his marine environment.